Because I'm going to let you down, girl.
And I'm going to let you down. That's where grace abounds.
Oh, are we singing?
Nope, just me.
Okay. Welcome to the Far More Podcast. Hey, Liz.
Hola, Jason.
Oh, okay. Now, Far More Podcast, now in Espanol?
Nope.
Oh.
That's, I mean, I know a little bit more than that,
Okay.
but not much.
All right.
Not much. We're going to dive right in
See?
because I have a question. Well played. Well played. And I'm so glad I picked right up on it. We're going to dive right in with a question.
Ooh, for me?
For you, girl.
Okay.
When I say the words,
Okay.
submit to all y'all, okay. Hello to our listeners.
You lost me at submit.
On our last episode, if you can go back and listen to that one, something very similar happened. Okay, will you let me say all of it this time?
Well, you don't need to, but okay, come on.
When I say the words, submit to all human authority. What happens in your brain?
Bet.
Bet.
I thought they were supposed to do like first word that comes to your mind.
I mean, you, yes. When I say submit to all human authority, you say,
I mean,
bet.
girl, we've talked for like 20 something episodes that I'm struggling with the word submit to a holy God. And then you threw in submit in the word human? I mean, what am I supposed to do with that?
Today, we're talking about Peter. And Peter gives us, i.e., Jason, the challenge to submit to all human authority. And when I read that, I was like, oh, this is good. I'm going to have a little fun with
I need
this
more
one.
Context on this. So give me chapter and verse on that. I don't know.
Well, I can if you want. Do you want to look it up now?
I need some context on that before you throw that at me.
1 Peter 2:13.
That's not my
It's not in your version.
My translation says nope.
Your translation says bet.
It says bet. What was that again? Come on.
1 Peter 2:13. Does your version say something different than mine?
Well, it says, be subject for the Lord's sake to every human institution. So it's talking about governments. It's submitting to governments and emperors and rulers.
Okay, well, there you go.
Well, that's different than submitting to every human.
Well, it said to all human authority. So I was reading, I believe, from the New Living Translation. So I think it took a little bit more liberty.
Okay. Girl, can I start with trying to submit to God first?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, that'd be great. I'm going to start with that.
So anyway, it was Peter. It was Peter who said that, and we're talking about him today. And he was a fisherman, and he was, what do you think he's most known for? We'll just say anybody who's read a little bit of the Bible or heard Bible stories.
So fisherman, inner circle of Jesus, walked on water, denied Jesus.
I was just going to go with the denied Jesus 3 times. I feel like most people, that's the story that they cling to, is that he denied Jesus 3 times. But I didn't realize that he was part of Jesus's inner circle until I really, started doing the research for the episode. And yes, he was a fisherman, but I love the story of the walking on the water story because I think it teaches us something. It teaches, you know what? I'm going to stop saying us. I'm going to start saying me. It teaches me that the power of Jesus is unmatchable, right? The power of Jesus had Peter walking on the water, but Peter took his eyes off of Jesus. He began to sink. Why? Because he took his eyes off of Jesus and instead he focused on the storm around him. Oh, why are you humming that?
No, I mean, I always wonder, like, okay, why did he take his eyes off Jesus? You could say
the wind and the waves, which to me i.e., is a storm.
I wonder if there's any part of it. Again, this is not in the Bible.
Again, not a teaching podcast.
But Jesus also just gave him a taste of power in doing that too. Was it that he was focused on the storm, or was he like, look what I just did? Or is there any part of like
you think there was like some amazement in it?
Or pride? I'm going more
Oh.
pride. I'm going more pride, not
See?
amazement, and started thinking like,
That would have
I'm doing
never.
this too.
Yeah, no, that would have never entered my thinking.
Well, that's because you don't struggle with that as much as I do.
No, I'm not. Pride, no, I'm just saying pride is not my downfall.
Yeah.
Pride, if I fall down, it's not because of pride.
Yeah.
Mine is lack of consistency, lack of discipline, lack of surrender. Yeah. Mine is not pride. I just think, well, for one, can we just talk for a minute how cool it is that he got to walk on water? I mean, seriously, how cool is that? He's in the boat. They're like, who is that out there? Jesus is walking on water. First, actually, let's pause on that thing. I'm in a boat. Let's just imagine you and I are in a boat and there's this massive storm around us. And we see we see Jesus walking on the water towards us. You know how our pastor talks about how we would be, if angels actually appeared to us, we would be fearful. We would actually be fearful. It wouldn't be like, oh, that's cute. I wonder if we would be a little fearful because you see somebody walking on water, something that defies all nature, everything we know, the natural world, because he is supernatural. But then we got out. I might sink too because of lack of faith, because I would be like, I can't do that. I can't walk on that water. What do you think would go through your mind if Jesus said, Jason, get out of the boat, walk to me?
Well, what's interesting with this story, I always used to think that the storyline was more about the depth of Peter's faith. His faith wasn't deep enough, right? He took his eye off Jesus. His faith wasn't deep enough to keep walking on water.
Okay.
What I've realized is it's a duration conversation. They were just with him performing miracles. They know his power.
Yeah, they've seen it in action.
And how often in our life, when God does something for us, the next day when something happens, we forgot the thing God did for us, and we're back in the same situation. It's a duration of our faith conversation.
It's like back to square one.
Right. I mean, they were with this guy performing miracles.
Yeah.
They know what he can do.
Yeah, right.
There should have been zero doubt. It's the duration of faith.
But you know what? What a beautiful testimony that even when we doubt, and God knows we're going to doubt him. Jesus knew that Peter was going to deny him, but he didn't treat him any differently, having that knowledge. God does not treat us any differently. And I think Peter's life is a beautiful example of we can screw up in some of the biggest ways. Peter denied knowing Jesus 3 times, not once, not twice, but 3 times. Somebody who was in his inner circle, who Jesus had with him, he was part of the gang. Even though Peter made that huge, huge mistake, that it can still be redeemed. God will still bring us right back into the fold and can still use our lives despite our missteps. And that is very comforting to me.
Can I flip that?
I don't know.
So we always talk as Peter denied Jesus 3 times.
We as in just Christians.
Church people.
Okay, church people.
I would actually say, wow, he only denied him 3? Meaning we deny Jesus every single day in our life with our actions or inactions.
Yeah.
And I don't know that we view it that way. I think we just think of this verbal denial that happened
Like it's
right
this
here.
outright,
Like,
I don't know Jesus.
like someone's going to come to you every day and say, are you a Jesus follower? And you're going to be put on the spot to answer the question yes or no. That's not how it plays out. Instead, it plays out in our actions, in our love, in our behaviors every single day.
So it's much more subtle.
It plays out in our action and inaction. So I would argue that we deny Jesus way more than 3 times a day.
That's a serious flip. But you're not wrong. Well, I don't know. Is it okay? I'm trying to process this in real time.
Come on.
Is it a denial of Jesus when we sin? I mean, I don't know that I see it that way.
It's a denial of his commandment to sin no more, right? So if you look at it from that lens.
It is, yeah.
I mean, I'm stretching the narrative here.
You are.
Right?
I feel like you're taking just a little bit of liberty.
Right.
Because it's just like if one of your kids, your kids, like they're just your kids.
They must have done something bad if they're my
That's
kids.
right.
Okay.
If one of our children disobeys us, I don't feel like that's them denying that I am their mother.
Well, you're not Jesus.
I'm not comparing.
Did
I'm
they
not
sin?
saying I'm Jesus.
Did they sin?
If they disobeyed their mom, then yes.
Okay. So they denied a core commandment.
But I don't know. I don't know. I got to think this one through a little bit more because I don't know that I 100% agree.
And it's
But I do know, I do for sure know what you're saying and where you're trying to go with it.
Yeah, I get surprised when we act surprised, like Peter denied him 3 times. Like I get surprised when we're surprised.
That makes sense. So we've been talking about a few different soldiers for the faith, and I feel like a common theme for all of them, it's either remain joyful in trials or don't worry about your suffering because there is hope at the end of all of this. And Peter was no different. He encouraged us to remain hopeful. I mean, really, he was writing letters to the believers in those days, but of course, it applies to us today as well, to remain hopeful during suffering. And do you feel like there's any difference between remaining hopeful amidst suffering and remaining joyful during trials? Or do you think that those, I know how you like to say they're close siblings, they're cousins. What relation do these two have to each other for you?
I can never just answer the question straight away. Right?
I know you can't. God bless your heart.
Because when all these guys are saying this, they've already got to the place of maturity that they don't care what happens to them in this life.
Oh, that's an excellent point.
Like, that's the issue, is we're trying to unpack these phrases.
They're at full surrender.
They're already like, I don't care.
I don't care.
I don't care what happens to me. This story probably is not going to end well for me on this planet.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, yeah, I think Jesus even told Peter that he was going to be a martyr.
Like,
for
most
the
of
faith.
them know they're going to get their head chopped off.
Or something. Some god-awful way of leaving this earth.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so once you're bought into, I don't care what happens to me on this earth, then those other things become a lot easier.
How do you get to, okay, not you. How do we get to that place? I would love to hear from anybody who is like, you know what? I'm there. I don't care. I don't care what happens to me. Do you care? I'm going to put you on the spot.
Do I care?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm working through that though.
Okay.
I listen, there's the difference between caring what happens to you and being afraid of death.
Okay.
Like I'm past the afraid of death part.
Okay.
The caring what happens to me, I'm still wrestling through that.
Can you say more? Because I feel like the two are the same thing.
No, death is a one-time event. Done.
Okay.
Like,
you're talking about the
correct.
various sufferings that you may
That's
endure.
right. That's
Okay.
right. Like,
Okay.
Those are very.
No, I understand.
Categories.
Okay. In the meantime is what you're talking about.
In the meantime, it's sort of the trials aspect, right? Yeah. I think that's what it comes down to is accepting that there's going to be trials to grow you or to just point others to Jesus.
And both.
Yeah.
Both can happen at the same
right.
time. Yeah, and if I'm being, just so that you're not alone on this island, if I'm being honest, I'm in the same boat.
See what you did there? Once you come out of that boat, come walk on the water.
I am in the same boat as you in that death is not a big deal to me. Being dead, being no longer on this earth I'm not afraid of that. But it is what is yet to come.
Right, but
up until that point.
Let's play that out. Just like we've talked about this before in your cancer journey, one of the things that really made me angry is when you would talk about that.
Talk about what?
Death.
For those who have not.
When you would talk about death. Like,
listen to
it's
that.
not a big deal if you die for you. It's a big deal if you die for me. Right?
Because you love me so much?
Yes, and...
because of the trials that you're going to face because of my death?
Because I'm like, you left me in this boat by myself? What, girl?
But I didn't.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and so I think that's the nuance.
That's part of the trials. Yeah. Well, yeah, that would definitely be a trial.
Yeah.
So one of the things that really inspires me about Peter is he boldly shared his faith. But do you know, and this is a gimme. What do we have to do first in order to be emboldened to share our faith? We have to spend time with Jesus. I think I talked about this on the last episode when we were talking about John, is that it's so important to spend time in God's word and in prayer, because it is not, I don't believe it was in, you like to talk about giftedness a lot, how you operate out of your giftedness. But I think that I think Peter and James and John, all of the disciples, they were working out of their giftedness from Jesus. They were emboldened by Jesus. And that doesn't happen apart from Jesus. I know that seems like a duh statement, but I think people just
differently.
Sure.
I don't know. Let me change the word giftedness. They were operating out of his strength. They saw every day his strength and power and belief and determination. Like it's those aspects, right?
Yes, or yes, but I'm not sure which one. But I think people, a lot of times we don't share our faith because we are afraid, we're fearful, we're embarrassed, we're unsure. But I think that's because we are trying to rely on ourselves. Am I making sense? Like it's a reliance on Jesus to make us bold. Do you disagree?
I might reframe it for me.
Okay.
My shyness in sharing my faith is not lack of boldness in Jesus.
Okay.
It's a lack of boldness in me and who I am. Because my concern is if I'm trying to share my faith with you, I'm trying to point you to Jesus. Look at Jesus as the model.
Yes.
The problem is a lot of times then you'll look at me as the model. Don't look at me, girl.
Yeah.
Don't look at me, girl.
Yeah.
You will go wrong on that. and I think that's what happens too often. This is what happens here in this world is we look to other people as the models.
Yeah. Well, and we even talked about that in the last episode.
And because that's what happens naturally. And that's where I get shy is like, no, I'm point you to Jesus as the model.
Don't look at me.
Do not look at me.
You're saying don't look at me.
Don't look at me.
Yeah.
But then everybody then wants to look at you and say, well, because of you, clearly Jesus is not the real deal. And I'm like, that's completely missing the point.
Well, and it's unfair because we are human, and even the best of humans are going to let other people down. But I do understand what you're saying. Mm-hmm. Point to Jesus, not to myself, because if that happens, the whole thing falls apart. That's what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes, and I agree with that. Absolutely.
Because I'm going to let you down, girl.
And I'm going to let you down. That's where grace abounds.
Oh, are we singing?
Nope, just
okay.
me.
Okay.
So as we wrap up this episode on Peter, something that he mentioned as I was, studying for this episode, as I do, he mentioned this quite a bit. He referred to, so he was writing letters, just like Paul, he wrote letters to a lot of the different churches, and Peter did the same thing. And he used this phrase, I don't know what the original text would say, but in the version I was reading, referred to believers as temporary residents. He wanted to remind, he also referred to them as dear friends, but we'll talk about that in a second. He wanted to drive that point home. This world is not your permanent dwelling place, so don't look at it, treat it, think about it as such. And I think that that is a really good word for us today, because I think we can get real attached to the things, the people, the things, the stuff, the having of the accumulation. I think that we start to see this world, I think it's dangerous when we start to see this world as our permanent dwelling place and not heaven, not eternity. And I think it's important for us to remember, hey, we are only here temporarily. And it's also a good word to remind us our time here is very, very short. And so we have to make the most of it in bringing as many people with us when we go.
I don't even know if it's the collecting of stuff as much as we want to make this place as comfortable as possible, right? We're all decorating our houses right now for Christmas, right? We got to have X $1,000 in our front yard per the HOA in terms of flowers and bushes, right? We do everything we can to make this place that we stay as comfortable as possible. We got to have at least 55 pillows on a bed, right?
We have 4.
You know what I mean, though.
I know what you mean.
Right? And I think
that's convicting.
Well, that's what I was thinking of as you were saying that. It's not necessarily accumulation of stuff. It's accumulation of comfort.
Yeah.
Because we try to act like, let's make this our permanent home. We talk about in terms of what's our forever home. Right?
Yeah.
We label a house a forever home.
That is a very popular term.
Right?
It is.
We point to, okay.
I hate that I think I've even used it before.
Right.
Honestly.
And then we talk about our dream home.
Yeah.
And then we create TV shows about it. And then, and so I was just thinking of that as you were processing of how short-sighted is that. It's easy for us to go, we don't collect a lot of stuff. We're more minimalist. But do we collect comfort? Do we still try and make things as comfortable as possible? And do we talk and think in terms of dream homes?
We are so focused on here.
Where we want to retire.
Right. It's a focus on here.
Yeah.
Being here on earth. And like you said, yeah, that's a really good point, Jason. How do I make myself as comfortable as possible? When that's not what he's talking about. He is talking about the exact opposite. Yeah. I mean, he doesn't literally say the words, make yourself as uncomfortable as possible, but he does say, don't think about this place as permanent. And let's just say, for instance, I didn't think of this place as where I was going to spend the rest of my life. If I was just going to be here for a week, I wouldn't kind of quote unquote set up shop. I would keep it pretty bare And I wonder if he was kind of talking about that too. Like, be ready to go on a moment's notice, maybe.
Well, yeah. Again,
I'm inferring
don't-
a lot, so don't quote me on anything, but
don't point to us or people, point to Jesus. Right? How often was Jesus trying to find a place to sleep in Scripture?
Yeah.
Right? Trying to find a place for him to lay his head.
he literally had to find a place to be born.
Correct.
Started his life out that way, literally.
Yeah, he wasn't building his dream lodge because he's a carpenter.
Okay, I said we were wrapping up, and we really are.
Okay.
So there was one other phrase,
Well,
and I talked to you about this off mic. How as I was reading 1 Peter, 2 Peter, it's so funny because he kept saying, "Dear friends." If we have any Bible scholars that listen to this podcast, I know we probably don't, but if we do, could somebody please email me and tell me? I know I want somebody to email me so bad. Email me and let me know what the original language called it, because in my translation it says "dear friends," and I was telling Jason that I kind of saw Peter as just, he has his hands together and he's like, "Okay, dear friends, this is the second time I'm writing to you about this same thing." And he was just trying to drive home his point. And I think that's a good reminder that we are not alone in that we need reminders all the time, that we are human, and that they were like that too. These crusaders, ambassadors, soldiers of the faith, they were just like us. Yeah. They needed reminders. They needed to be told 1,000 times, "Hey, y'all, this is why you're here." And I've talked about before on an episode how I take so much comfort in hearing that other people are broken. Not that I appreciate that they're broken, because I don't want them to be broken, but it makes me not feel so alone in my struggles and my needing to be reminded every single day, "Liz, you're supposed to be doing this thing."
So when you hear him say "dear friends," like what does that sound like to you? Like I know it's not meant to be condescending.
Not condescending.
Right? But in my head it's a little bit like, "Okay, buddy."
Yeah. To me it's more like a loving, endearing "dear friends," not "dear friends."
Like, "Sweet Liz."
Yeah, not like, no. To me, it's a term of endearment, and I could be, again, somebody figure it out for me, because I wouldn't even know where to start researching that. But to me, it's more of a, like, how I put my hand on your arm when I want to calm you down, or you know what I'm saying, when you're kind of stressed, and I'm like, "Jason, it's okay." It's more like a "dear friends," but there is a little part of me that it's like frustration. Maybe that's what it is.
Right.
Not I don't think there's any condescension in there at all. Maybe a little bit of frustration. "Dear friends, I'm writing you this letter again." It's basically what he's saying. I'm writing this letter to you again.
Here we are again. Because
you need a reminder again. Mm-hmm. I take great comfort in that.
You feel seen?
I feel seen. And I can identify with them.
"Dear Liz."
Dear Liz.
Here we are again.
Dear friend Liz. Here we are again. Sanctification process in this one is slow, like a snail, but that's okay. So I think a great way to end it is to just encourage each other, encourage our listeners to pray for boldness in sharing our faith, and to remind ourselves that we're going to sink every now and then. We're not just going to walk on water all the time, because we're human. And the important thing is that we keep our eyes on Jesus. We ask him to convict us when we go the wrong way. And that's what I'm doing in my life. I am currently praying for conviction over wrongdoing, and asking for his strength to just fight sin and fight temptation. Because that's what it takes. It takes his power. I think Peter's book, the books of Peter in the Bible, are really great examples of Christ's power through us. It's not us. It's nothing. It has nothing to do with us. Don't point to us, like you said earlier. Don't point to us. Point to Christ, and we have to remind ourselves of that. We are not doing any of the good things in our life because of us. It's because of Christ.
Yes. And dear friends, where are we denying Jesus in our own life every day?
Multiple times
Right.
a day.
Where is our faith too
Shallow.
short in duration?
Yeah.
And we've forgotten the things that Jesus has done for us. We've taken our eyes off him.
I think that's a great word to end on. Y'all, we are so glad that you were here. I say it every single week. I mean it every single week.
She does.
I do mean it. If you are not following us on social media, we are on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Far More Podcast. And I'm not even going to say send me an email.
Please send her an email. Please
send me an
Please send her
email.
an
Just
email.
say hi, farmorepodcast@gmail.com, and we will catch y'all next time.
See ya.